US President Donald Trump says the war with Iran will end very quickly, telling lawmakers at the White House that the United States intends to bring the conflict to a rapid conclusion.
Everything was the best. Stock market, the highest. And I called my people in. I called them in. I said, congratulations, everybody, but we're going to have to make a little journey down to a place called Iran. We have to stop them. They have nuclear on their mind, and we're not going to let them have a nuclear weapon. And we've done a hell of a job, and I think we're going to be finished with that very quickly, and they won't have a nuclear weapon, and hopefully we're going to get it done in a very nice manner.
At the same time, new polling by Reuters and Ipsos shows Trump's approval rating has dropped to 35%, close to the lowest level of his presidency since returning to office. The poll found declining support among Republicans and growing public dissatisfaction over rising gasoline prices following U.S. strikes on Iran earlier this year alongside Israel. According to the survey, 21% of Republicans now disapprove of Trump's performance, compared to just 5% when he first took office in January 2025. The poll also found that only 1 in 5 Americans approve of Trump's handling of the cost of living. Meanwhile, the Wall Street Journal reported that the United States seized an Iran-linked oil tanker in the Indian Ocean overnight. The tanker, known as the Sky Wave, had been sanctioned by Washington in March for allegedly transporting Iranian oil and was reportedly carrying more than 1 million barrels of crude loaded at Iran's Karg Island. Speaking at the White House, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance said Washington and Tehran had made a lot of progress in negotiations and claimed neither side wanted a return to military confrontation. Vance said the United States was aggressively pursuing negotiations with Iran, while making clear that Washington would not accept Iran obtaining a nuclear weapon. He warned that if Iran acquired nuclear weapons, it could trigger a wider nuclear arms race across the Gulf and beyond, saying other countries would likely seek their own nuclear capabilities. Vance also said the US remains prepared to resume military operations if negotiations fail. There's an option B, he said, warning that the United States was locked and loaded if necessary. He said Washington had attempted to clearly communicate its red lines and areas where compromise was possible. Vance also referenced his visit to Islamabad, saying it was intended as a sign of good faith that the United States was willing to make a deal if Iran agreed to conditions preventing it from obtaining nuclear weapons.
Why did I go to Islamabad, Pakistan? Why did I spend, I think, probably 22 hours on a plane going there, 24 hours coming back, and then 21 hours on the ground negotiating with the Iranians? Is because we wanted to show a sign of good faith. The Vice President of the United States is willing to cut a deal so long as the Iranians are willing to meet us again on that core issue of never having a nuclear weapon. We think that we've made a lot of progress. We think the Iranians want to make a deal. The President of the United States has asked us to negotiate in good faith, and that's exactly what we've done. So we're in a pretty good spot here, but there's an option B. And the option B is that we could restart the military campaign to continue to prosecute the case, to continue to try to achieve America's objectives. And we could talk a little bit about what that looks like, but that's not what the president wants, and I don't think it's what the Iranians want either. We have an opportunity here, I think, to reset the relationship that has existed between Iran and the United States for 47 years. That's what the president has asked us to do, and that's what we're going to keep on working at. But it takes two to tango. We are not going to have a deal that allows the Iranians to have a nuclear weapon. So as the president just told me, we're locked and loaded. We don't want to go down that pathway, but the president is willing and able to go down that pathway if we have to.
On the Iranian side, Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi claimed Iranian forces were the first to down an American F-35 fighter jet, citing a U.S. congressional report on combat losses. He warned that any return to war would feature many more surprises. Russia has meanwhile offered to assist in efforts to resolve the conflict. Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov said Moscow was ready to provide all possible assistance in talks between the United States and Iran. At the United Nations, the Security Council condemned a drone strike targeting the UAE's Barakah nuclear power plant. Russia's ambassador to the UN called attacks on peaceful nuclear facilities categorically unacceptable, while US Ambassador Mike Waltz described the strike as outrageous and unacceptable. In energy markets, 2 Chinese supertankers carrying 4 million barrels of Middle Eastern crude exited the Strait of Hormuz after remaining in the Gulf for more than 2 months, according to shipping data. Oil prices eased after Trump again said the war with Iran would end very quickly. Brent crude fell to around $110 a barrel, while US crude dropped to nearly $104. However, analysts said investors remain cautious due to uncertainty surrounding peace talks and concerns that renewed US attacks on Iran could still take place.